Cate, what is it with Darwin? Why are Christians so opposed to evolution?
Evolution is an issue, was an issue, in the 1860s, because evolutionary biology and contemporary geology offered empirical confirmation for what biblical scholars had been saying at that point for several hundred years, which is that the Bible is not to be read literally. It was written in a time when no one would have taken it literally, and so Genesis is not a record of actual events. I quote a whole array of really important early century Christian theologians saying that to read the Bible literally is to expose it to ridicule, and holding up the creation stories in Genesis as a prime example of why the Bible cannot be read literally. So when Darwin and Lyell start offering empirical evidence for that, the Christian community divides against itself in very significant ways. And Darwin becomes a sort of poster boy for what? For attacking biblical scholars. Biblical scholars were a far more important target than poor Darwin.
What about miracles, though? Can people really believe in miracles in the 21st century?
Well, the question is, what do you mean by miracles? You can take that, what we think miracles are supposed to mean and what miracles actually meant in the ancient world are two very, very different things. You can imagine that miracles are claims that God can interfere in cell biology. But in the ancient world, miracles were political statements. They were claims about power and authority and the socio-political order, not about cell biology. They were very well-established convention in heroic biography, but miracles always enforced the political status quo. What makes Jesus' miracle so important was that symbolically they confronted the status quo rather than enforcing it. And so we have to be able to read back the symbolism there to see what he was getting at, see what the meaning of these were in the Gospels themselves as stories, and for the people of the time. It's not about cell biology. It's about something much more important than that.
What about prayer, though? Don't people pray for miraculous changes in cell biology, like curing widely metastatic cancer?
Sure. I mean, some people do. There's no question about that. Some people do, but that's not what miracles are about. That's not what prayer is about. My daughter-in-law is a Buddhist, and she has flags, Buddhist prayer flags on her front porch, and they are meant to signal compassion. Does she think that literally having these little pieces of cloth on her front porch makes the world a more compassionate place? Is that that's literal-minded belief in prayer too, if you think that way, but clearly it's not, or clearly it needn't be. Maybe the best answer here is a story. Can I tell you a story?
Sure.
When I was a senior in college, I decided to go to graduate school. And a few weeks later, after I told my parents, I got a note in the mail from one of my mother's friends saying that I heard you were going to go for a PhD. And I want you to know I'm going to be doing a novena to St. Jude for you. Novena is, 20 or 30 minutes of prayer done every day for 9 days. And I thought, oh, okay. But St. Jude was the patron saint of hopeless causes. It was like, well, what do I do with this? So I called my mother. I said, Mom, Mrs. O'Malley is doing a novena to St. Jude. And my mother says, Mrs. O'Malley is an idiot. Don't listen to her. And I thought, well, okay. But the fact is, Mrs. O'Malley was not an idiot. I mean, she was the mother of 9 or 10 kids, and she was a really busy woman. She probably still had 6 or 7 of those kids at home. And so she's taking 20 or 30 minutes every day to pray for my happiness and success in my chosen field. Does she think she's praying for some magical interference in how my professors would grade me, or whether I'd get a job when I was done with all of this. I don't think so. I think if you had asked her, she would have been horrified by that claim. She was expressing moral support. She could have offered social support. She could have just said, oh, I heard. Oh, congratulations. Oh, I hope you do well. Oh, I hope it all is terrific. Oh, I'm sure it will be. She could have sent an ordinary social note like that. Instead, she was doing something much more serious. Saying, and this was 1972. Even today, women have only 2% of women have PhDs. So what did it mean that here's this working class girl who thinks she's going to go off and get a PhD? I needed all the moral support I could get. And if I had been inclined to pray, which I wasn't, I wanted nothing to do with any of this, St. Jude might have been the perfect person to pray to. Right, the patron saint of hopeless causes. Working class kid? Are you crazy? I mean, this was not the roles women had in the world I grew up in. Prayer is an introspective, creative process meant to strengthen our capacity for love and compassion with one another. And that's incredibly serious. And maybe that is miraculous, but it's miraculous in a very different way than thinking you can reach down and, change a grade book from a professor.